Hi there, YouTube. Richard Lewis here again. I'm by myself. You can see the overlay's a little bit different. Sam is in the sky, flying back to Wales from America, and we're going to reconvene, and we've got a long list of videos to get through when he gets back to the UK. But we're rapidly approaching 70,000 subs, which for me was unthinkable not that long ago. Kind of felt that with the whole, being pushed out of creating League of Legends content thing, the chance of growing a YouTube channel was pretty slim. That's generally the shortcut a lot of people take. You do League of Legends content, you put it on the League of Legends sub. It's the most active sub in terms of daily traffic on the whole of Reddit, and your YouTube channel just grows, which is one of the reasons why there's so much content for League of Legends. And so I'm super happy about it. I got some time to myself today. I'm on my day off. And what I wanted to do was just record a video to probably address one of the most asked questions I ever get in esports. And that is about how do I become an esports journalist, which is a ridiculous question. So we're going to go through that. And I'm going to try and make it as in-depth as I can, but I'm going to try and be succinct. So let's get straight into it. The first thing I would say is, and I probably get asked this about 6 to 12 times a week, how do I become an esports journalist? If you're asking that question, you're asking the wrong question. The question should never be, how do I become an esports journalist? It should just be, how do I become a journalist? The idea of kind of specializing early on in your career is absurd. You might have a skill set or some knowledge that's very important down the road, but you've got to learn the craft. You've got to learn journalism first, and you shouldn't want to cut off this realm of possibility that you could write about and things that you could achieve by just saying, hey, I want to be an esports journalist. I think as well, and I never pigeonholed myself that way. I never used to like to say I'm an esports journalist. I used to say I'm a journalist who writes about esports. I have chosen to specialize in this field. I've written in other fields. I've been published in other fields. I could go and get published in other fields right now. I could leave all this behind if I wanted to. That's because I'm a journalist. But I choose to be here, and I choose to do this work. So if you're asking how do I become an esports journalist, you are asking a very silly question. You should want to become a journalist first and foremost, and you should want to write about esports because you're into it. And I generally use that as a way to weed out people that aren't really being serious about it. I respect the craft of journalism as a whole, and I respect the industry of esports as a whole, and we combine. So let's start as to how you'll become a good journalist. Now, let's presume this is for people that have had no background in it, no education in it, no qualifications in it, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But let's just assume, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think as long as you're willing to learn, it's fine. So let's assume that. Now, in the preface for David Simon's masterpiece, Homicide: A Year on the Killing Streets, which is all about the Baltimore Homicide Detective Squad. It got adapted into The Wire, and David Simon, an incredible journalist, one of the finest modern journalists we've got. There's a preface by Richard Price, and in it talks about Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Jimmy Breslin, and what he said about Damon Runyon. And for those that don't know who Damon Runyon is, Damon Runyon was a newspaper guy who died in the 40s, who, he wrote about kind of, street crime. I think Guys and Dolls is kind of the musical came out of his fictional works. He used to write fiction as well as kind of accurate reports about what street crime was like in that time. And because of him, several of his terminologies have entered into colloquialisms. Good Time Charlie, for example, we owe that to Damon Runyon. So that's who Damon Runyon is. And Jimmy Breslin said he did what all good journalists do. He hung out. And that's vitally important. When you start, You may not have a handle on what esports is, what kind of reporting you want to do. And this is true for any scene. And you've got to go and you've got to kind of introduce yourself and be present at these events, at these gatherings. Where do people in esports congregate? They do it at LAN events, they do it at tournaments. It's imperative that you get to these events. And I'm not talking about getting a press accreditation. Remember, you're starting out. You're not worth a press accreditation. A tournament organizer isn't going to give you one, nor should you expect one, nor should one being provided to you be the make or break as to whether you attend the event. All my early events I attended out of my own pocket to begin with, while I wanted to get a handle on what esports was. And that's what you do. You go to the bar, you hang out, you meet people, you talk to people, and you gather information. Just to get a general idea of it, you get your face out there, you introduce yourself to people, and when they know who you are, they obviously feel comfortable talking to you. I'll read the rest of this part of the preface. I think it's very interesting. And it talks about David Simon after the Runyon quote. So, Jimmy Breslin once wrote of Damon Runyon. He did what all good journalists do. He hung out. But in Homicide, his year in the life chronicle of the Baltimore Police Department's Homicide Unit, David Simon didn't just hang out. He pitched a tent. As both a reporter and a dramatist, Simon has always held the conviction that God is a first-rate novelist, and to be there when he's strutting his stuff is not only legitimate but honorable, part and parcel of fighting the good fight. Simon is a great collector and interpreter of facts, but he's also a junkie, and his addiction is to bearing witness. I say this with authority. It takes one to know one, and the addiction plays itself out like this. Whatever we see on the street, with the police, with the corner boys, with people who are just trying to survive, with their families intact in a world sown with every kind of landmine, only whets our desire to see more, to hang and to hang and to hang with whoever will have us in an endless quest for some kind of urban truth. Our bedside prayer, please Lord, just one more day, one more night, let me see something, hear something that will be the key, the golden metaphor for all of it, which, as any degenerate gambler knows, is in the very next roll of the dice. Truth is right around the next corner, in the next bit of throwaway street commentary, the next radio call, the next hand-to-hand drug transaction, the next unfurling of crime scene tape. As the beast that is Baltimore, is New York, is urban America, like some insatiable sphinx whose riddles aren't even intelligible, continues to gobble up one benighted soul after another. And that this is kind of how I felt when I got into esports. I went to events and I met people. I met interesting characters. I met people who were a little bit rough around the edges, people who weren't as intelligent as they thought they were, comical characters, risible characters, interesting characters, people from different backgrounds, different stripes. Everyone had a different story as to why we were here. And the more and more I talked, the more and more I got a handle on what esports was and what their place in it all was, how it was structured, how the money was made, what an organization is, how players join organizations, how recruitment works. And, this was all anecdotal information that I built up. Now, with that in mind, I will quote Terry Pratchett now, and he says, journalism makes you think fast. You have to speak to people in all walks of life, especially local journalism. This is true for. And this is just to say to you, if you want to be a journalist, you can't be socially awkward. There might be a type of journalism you can do where you can be just in a room, just over a computer, just digging, just doing research. But ultimately, the best journalism is done by going out into communities, talking to people, interacting with people on a very basic and low level. That's the bread and butter of journalism. When I've worked at local papers and covered local interest stories, you are just meeting people, just everyday folk. You go to their house, you have a cup of tea, you ask for a quote about something, maybe their son died and it's in the newspapers and you're asking them about it, things like this. And you've got to be able to be sociable. And if you're not capable of that, you're going to struggle. It's a big part of the game. Now, the other thing is, I already said this, respect the craft. And when I say that, I mean, understand this is not just writing. This isn't just beginning, middle, end. There is an art to journalism. There is a craft to journalism. There is a structure to a good journalistic piece of work, and you need to get a handle on that. I mean, you've got to read journalism. You've got to absorb journalism. I see a lot of people asking me about wanting to become a journalist. I'll ask them, what do you read? And they don't read newspapers. They don't know what a lead is. They don't know what a nut graph is. And that's very American saying, to be fair. We don't necessarily learn about that in Europe and the UK, but they don't even understand the basic structure of a story because they've never read one. So writing, I think, always starts from reading. And even great writers, and I'm going to quote Hunter S. Thompson quite a lot in this video, but he used to type out The Great Gatsby on his typewriter endlessly, page after page, just typing out The Great Gatsby because he wanted to learn the music and the sound and the feel of what great writing kind of felt like, the music of writing. And he did it incessantly through his early career. And that's what he felt he had to do to get a handle on what good writing feels like. If you're a journalist and you've never read a serious piece of journalism, I don't think you can make that leap. I don't think you can make that progression. I think you'd have to be a hell of a talent. And certainly if you were a hell of a talent, you wouldn't be asking me. So when you've got to learn about it. And to do that, you can go on courses. I certainly recommend that where possible, but it's not possible for everybody. Certainly there can be, there is a stigma attached to journalism. It definitely doesn't pay money. If you're a young adult and you want to get into it, and you're going to tell your parents, hey, I want to be a journalist, expect them to be incredibly disappointed in you. And even in my late 20s, my own mother, who I don't talk to and don't necessarily have an amazing relationship with, I certainly don't talk to her frequently by any stretch of the imagination, she would still be telling me to be a plumber, Like, why don't you just go and retrain to be a plumber? Yeah, so that's how highly she rated my achievements, and I hear similar stories from lots of people who work in esports, not just in journalism. And their parents are just so disappointed in the choices you've made. Well, fuck that, right? Like, just never accept that, never take that on the chin. If it's something you want to do and you can get into a school, even if people don't want to support that, find a way. It's that simple. It's doable. So let's say you can't get on a course. Let's say you don't go on a course. There's many fine courses out there. I absolutely have no problem with an autodidactic approach to journalism. You will find increasingly, actually, that a lot of these games journalists, especially, have no experience, don't have qualifications. They're glorified bloggers that have been absorbed because they were popular or had followings, or more worryingly these days, their political alignment overlapped with that of an editorial team at a publication. And I think what's going to separate you from them is they are very often arrogant and believe that they don't need to do that, hey, the proof is in the pudding. I've been employed to do this, therefore I am good at doing this. And that's a very short-sighted and childish mindset. So I think if you care about it, you will go out and you will buy books, and you will read as many books as you can about journalism. I'd hold these up for you. I have these books. I have many, many books on journalism. I read endlessly about the craft of journalism. I want to get better at it. And refreshers never hurt. Laws change all the time. New editions of textbooks are issued. It's very important that you get a good handle on what you can do. But 3 essential reads, I would say, in my humble opinion, are first of all, let me just bring this up. I did have this open. I'm an idiot. This is the one I don't have up, but it's Understanding Journalism by John Wilson. And just from memory, Understanding Journalism is a very good basic guideline to the function and methodology in journalism. It's as a textbook. It's going to cover all of the bases, and it'll help you understand literally how journalism works, what is and isn't journalism, what different types of journalism are, things like this. I mean, this is a great primer for anybody that wants to get into journalism and wants to understand it. I would also say the Universal Journalist is by David Randall. Is a must read. It's an essential book in my opinion. Just to take the Amazon reviews here and some of the quotes about it. It's described as easily the best introduction to being a reporter I've ever come across. It provides solid, no-nonsense advice on the skills needed to do this job. Best of all, it's been written by a true newsman, and his enthusiasm for the task in hand is evident on every page. And that's from Paul Jones, who's the course leader at the Trinity Mirror editorial training course, I believe. So this book is hands down. Like if you had to pick one of these, if you only had enough money to buy one of these, you buy this book because it doesn't just talk about things you need to know. It talks about the mechanics of reporting. What does a beat reporter do? How do you go out there? How do you get stories? How do you collate information? How do you file? How do you present it? How do you write? What can and can't you do? And it's just really just an essential guide to everything. And you know, I recommend this to every trainee I've ever worked with in esports journalism, all the people that I've developed and cultivated. This is a book that I recommend to all of them. And then finally, there's Ethics for Journalists by Richard Keeble. Now, I'm a bit of a stickler for this because I've seen the erosion of journalistic ethics. I've seen conflict of interests writ large. I've seen people use journalism as a weapon, but that isn't necessarily always bad. It's just like the type of target that the thing they do with it, and it is grotesque and unethical that people will take. That they have their own narrative and they'll come in and they'll bend facts to suit that narrative. And again, we'll talk about that in a moment. Walking that ethical guideline is absolutely vital when you're a journalist. Your entire life is about being ethical, and you've got to not just apply those ethics to your work. Unfortunately, and this is where a lot of people struggle, you've got to apply those ethics to your life. If I'm going to write about somebody doing something immoral, I cannot engage in a similar immoral activity. I have to be able to gauge what's in the public interest. I can't just foist something that is a pet peeve of mine into the public interest. So if somebody's doing something privately that I don't like, but it has no bearing on the ability to do their job or anything else, it's not in the public interest, and I shouldn't be putting it out there. And that's why I don't like rags that take salacious and scandalous storylines just for the sake of them. Everyone's entitled to a private life. And to understand and walk this ethical line every day is incredibly hard. It is incredibly tough. It's very demanding. A lot of people fall down on it. And one of the reasons why I've been so vocal about it and tried my best to never stray from that is because I've seen it in games journalism, and especially in esports journalism. I've seen these people go to open bars and schmooze, and I've seen journalists that supposedly are respectable people demand freebies from companies on the basis that, hey, I'll do an unboxing for you, I'll give you a good review, like trading copy for favors. It's so grotesque, and you got to. Some people, I've got no doubt. Some people don't even know that's wrong. As stupid as that sounds, I do believe that without the proper training and understanding of the burdens, the expectation of being a journalist, that's what happens. And some people will come in and think, hey, we saw this recently with the CSGO news guy, right? In my video, got pissed off about Mo. Tried to get a story where he implied Mo was maybe cheating on his fiance with no evidence, put it out there and was boasting about it and bragging about it and saying, you fucked with the wrong guy. That is disgusting. That is a breach of ethics. That's a breach of your position as a journalist. And unfortunately, I see this kind of journalism often now. So you've got to read a book on ethics. You have to understand the code that comes with the job, and that is the book that will tell you about it. It really is a vital read. So there's your textbooks. Go away, read them. And again, like I said, there's nothing wrong with being self-taught. If you take it seriously, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, the other thing people talk about: how do I do it? How do I get published? How do I do the literal becoming of a journalist? Let's say you've done all the stuff that I'm talking about. You've hung out, you've built sources, you've built knowledge, and now you're ready to write. Well, and this sounds so almost patronizing, but hear me out. You've got to just sit the fuck down and do it. You've just got to write. It's that simple. Once you have written a piece of work, it exists. You can sell it, you can show it, you can self-publish, and it seems to me ridiculous that people are like, they want to get the job first before they even try their hand at doing the work. It cannot be that way round. You need to hone your craft. I bet if I was to look back at some of the stuff I wrote in 2005, further back, even 1998, I'd be absolutely horrified at how terrible it was. And I still feel that way about a lot of my work now, that it's not written well enough, like my creative grasp of language is kind of burnt out somewhere along the line because of the grueling nature of the work that I do. So you get a lot of people talk about motivation, like I need the motivation to write. If you honestly need to be motivated to do this job, if you need somebody to light a fire under you, this isn't the job for you. This is something you either are a journalist or you aren't, and you learn very quickly whether or not you are. I've said many times, hey, I've quit journalism. I'm not going to do journalism. I'm going to just focus on my career. I can't. It's in my blood. As soon as someone tells me something, I have to look into it. I have to start digging. I have to start turning over stones. And then if I find anything, I have to present that to the public. I'm compelled to do it. I don't know why. I just am. I am a journalist. That is it. It is in the blood. Okay. So if you need any additional motivation, you are not a journalist. You just aren't. And just on that point in general, I see people talk about motivation. Oh, if someone paid me money, I'd be motivated to write. Fuck motivation. Motivation is a load of fleeting bullshit. If I didn't do stuff that I don't feel like every time I didn't feel like it, I'd not do much because I'm inherently lazy. I know that in myself. I am lazy. I would happily sit around drinking beers and playing computer games and goofing off all day if I could. I literally have no desire to take all of this so seriously. It's just not, do you know what I mean? That's just not my personality archetype. What I do is I discipline myself. I sit down and I say, today you record the video. Today you write the story. Today you do 1,000 words. And I make this deal with myself that if I do not do it, then I need to stop. I need to quit because I can no longer do it anymore. And I force myself to do it. And it's a grind and it's not good. But discipline is way more important than motivation. Absolutely. In anything you do, be disciplined. So, like I said, you want to be a writer, shut the fuck up, sit the fuck down, start fucking writing. End of discussion. Write your first piece. Have it ready to go. When you contact an editor or a publisher, or even when you have, get a blog, right? Have work ready. Do it. Show it to people. Just wake up and do it. If you define yourself as a journalist, if you live like a journalist, you will become a journalist. That was another thing I did. I made a very conscious decision from after I left university. I am a journalist now. And everybody knows that I had shit jobs. They talk about it all the time. I had shit jobs. I worked on farms. I worked selling phones. But when people asked me who I was and what I did, I was a journalist. And I could always point to work. I wrote for free. I ran up credit card debt, trying to travel and get interesting stories and selling articles. I just did it. So there's no excuses. And these days, it's easier than ever to be published. The esports industry is crying out for content. Crying out for it. And they might not pay you. or you might have to do a few pieces for free. So fucking what? That's the game. Once you know it's good, once they like it, get your money. But if you have to give a piece or two free just to show people that you're good at what you do, do it. But then fuck you, pay me, right? And again, if you can't find anyone willing to take a chance on you, self-publish. And this is another thing, and I know this is a pet peeve of a lot of people in the industry. The amount of journalists that I know that even still now do not have their own brands. They don't build their brands. They don't have a Twitter. They don't have a Reddit account. They don't have a Facebook page. They do not engage with other people on social media. They don't make YouTube videos. It's like, how do you expect anyone to know who the fuck you are? And again, you've got to learn basic things like, what is the optimal time to release a piece of content? When is it vitally important to drop a story? If you're working on a story and let's say this story is about a team playing at this tournament and you've got 3 days, there is a time scale that you have a deadline. Work to it. You have to release that piece by then for it to get the maximum exposure. You can't just sit back and expect people to find your work. It's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. Do you know how big the fucking internet is? Do you know how much content there is out there? You've got to be a little bit forceful, a little bit forthright in getting your work noticed. And I'm not talking about tweeting at someone saying, hey, can you retweet this for me? I'm seriously talking about how do I build my brand? How can I take advantage of opportunities when they present themselves? And that might be reaching out. That might be reaching out to other people, not obnoxiously. Not please retweet this. That is like that's a guaranteed no almost every time. Just reach out to people. Like, could you, privately, could you look at my work? Tell me if it's any good. I'm sure you get this a lot, but I'm serious about it. Separate yourself from the idiots. They're just the time wasters, because we all have dealt with time wasters. That's the other thing as well. Anyone who's established will have dealt with a time waster. I couldn't tell you a number for how many times I have sat down for 3 months and worked incredibly hard with a aspiring young journalist, or so they told me, only at the end of 3 months for them to go, yeah, this isn't for me, mate. And I've fucking poured my heart and soul into it. And now I just don't do that anymore. It's not enough hours in the day. I can't. While I'm doing that, I'm not working, So fuck it. And this is what I mean. People fuck it up for other people, the time wasters. So make it very clear that you're not a time waster by how you present yourself. But you've got to get out there. You've got to hustle. It's all about the hustle, This is an interesting thing that I want to say. So let's say you are now published. Let's say you are a journalist. You're going to events regularly. You're writing. You are out there. People often ask, where's the line? Like, how do I keep this job? Okay. So the key thing, apart from being productive, is understand what you do. And whether you want to accept it or not, you serve the public and the public interest. That is where you're loyal. If you're ever conflicted, that is the North Star. That's where you go to. Do the people need to know about this? Is this in the public interest? Would I want to know about this if I was in the public, if I had used this service, if I supported this team, if I had donated to this person, etc., etc., etc.? If the answer to that is yes, that is where you go. That is who you serve. If you cannot handle serving a group of people as ungrateful as the general public, leave this job, get the fuck out, do not do it. Because the general public very often don't even know what is good for them. They very often don't even know what's in the public interest. Sometimes you can reveal these deep, dark secrets that are in the public interest, do benefit the general public, but you're like the guy who's just told everyone Santa Claus doesn't exist, and they fucking hate you for it. But you serve them, and you still do it, regardless of that. If you want thanks and a pat on the back, fuck you, wrong job. Doesn't work like that. You're effectively in almost like a mishmash of academia and the service industry. that's how I've always felt about it. That no matter what people say about me, and again, I'm sure I've contradicted this at points, and I've saltily said it's just not worth your while. I'd never fuck the general public. Fuck them. I'm never going to write ever again. I don't mean that. It's not in my heart. It might come out my mouth, but it's not in my heart, right? I do this, and I know that when I present this information, I always do it with the intention of the greater good and serving the people that need to know this stuff. And there's so many journalists that are like self-serving pieces of shit, like unbelievable, slimy, devious. They want to be celebrities, and what they do is they leverage the public to do this one way or the other. And it can be by pandering, or it can be by just being deliberately contrary to everything and inspiring ire and anger, and none of that actually serves the public. If I pander to you and I don't tell you the truth about something that you need to know the truth about, I am not doing right by you. Same goes that if I just say the opposite of what you say and just get a bait and a rise out of you, I'm not serving you either. I'm not providing it, but certainly you'll have to follow my work now, obsessively, fastidiously, because you're right. If I'm pandering to you, I like that guy. I like him. A lot of people don't critically assess. They're just, he's saying what I want to hear. So fuck it, I love that guy. Or if I'm making you irate, it's just like, I can't believe what this person's saying. I'm gonna have to monitor everything they say so I can just be angry about it. And this sells. This puts bums on seats. This makes huge brands out of just adopting those very basic attitudes towards people. And if you've got a publishing company that like presents you front and center and basically tells you to do that, it's like performance art. It's got nothing to do with journalism at all. So you see a lot of journalists that are self-serving. You see a lot of journalists that worry about their job. They're like, hey, I don't want to upset anybody. I just want the checks to keep coming in. And again, if that is your primary concern, I have to keep the lights on, I have to eat, and therefore I will be economical with the truth if it ever hurts my wallet. Fuck you, you are not a journalist. You serve the public. This is your job. You have to tell the truth. You have to inform the public. This isn't negotiable. This is the core of the job. If you're ever worried about somehow it eating into your fucking bottom line, that quandary in your head right there is the thing that's going to make you a corrupt journalist. Because if you ever compromise based on that understanding, it's not a big leap from, if I'll lose my job if I publish this, to if I publish this, I'll get paid more money. That is a tiny hop, skip, and a jump to get there. It is a slippery slope, and you have just got to be absolutely rigid and forthright. File the copy. If your editor doesn't want to publish, it's on them. But you did your job. Stay true to that, always. And understand, you're not PR. You aren't a PR division. Journalists know how PR works, and PR people know how journalism works. There's some overlap, but what you aren't doing is writing good copy for a company. Serve the public interest, write the truth, and if a game is bad, review it bad. If someone's taking money in an unethical fashion, write it up. If a celebrity is doing something improper, write it up. Do not worry about blacklists and backlash. I've had that in my entire life. I've been on more fucking blacklists than I care to mention. And in the end, everybody drops them. Because they'll need you down the road if you are the voice of reason, if you have integrity, if you tell the truth. Eventually, companies will always have to use you. Because they know if they do something good and you go out and say it, people will believe it. And integrity is your biggest quality that you'll ever have as a journalist. So, fuck the blacklist. Fuck it. Put me on it. I'm not writing your PR. I don't care if you'll never give me an interview ever again. I don't care if I can't come to your events. Fuck you. I wrote the truth. Deal with it. And the other thing, and this kind of links to earlier, is just learn how to handle a source, Like, You'll get people come and give you information. You'll get people who want to tell you things, want to hang out. You've got to determine, when do I keep a secret? When do I reveal a secret? How do I protect my sources and keep them anonymous? If they're telling you something that's gold, but you absolutely can't use it because only they could possibly know it, you've got to protect it. You can't compromise them. Now, I've got hundreds and hundreds of sources. It grows every day, and you got to go between. You can't just use them once and then like never talk to them again. That might happen for some on specialist stories, but generally my sources in the industry, I'll check in with them from time to time. How you doing? Just have a catch up, a cup of tea, whatever it is, and talk, because you've got these people are your lifeblood. You can't be everywhere. Your eyes and ears, you can only cover so much. You need other people to bring you information, and then it's your job to disseminate that information and maybe go out and speak to other people, because source one doesn't know about source two if you've done your job. So you can check and learn how to handle a source network and handle it ethically. So, following on from all of this, especially the stuff about the PR division and blacklists and backlash, Glenn Greenwald said, a key purpose of journalism is to provide an adversarial check on those who wield greatest power by shining a light on what they do in the dark and informing the public about those acts. And I've always believed that, if you want to be a journalist, but you don't have the stomach for a fight, again, fuck you, get out. It's just not going to work. It's not going to be for you. You're not going to contribute anything meaningful. You're going to have to learn how to fight. And every opponent you come across is going to be bigger. They're going to be stronger. They're going to be tougher than you. It's just that simple. Like every time I write about a player, about a team, about an organization, about a league, right? Every time I do that, they've got a bigger fan base than me. They've got a bigger megaphone than me. They can deny it, and they've got an army of fans who will fucking defend them to the death. Rabid, foaming fans who love them so much that they believe in their own infallibility. And when they leverage that, when they deny that story, those people come for you. They'll attack your credibility. Privately, these people will pick up phones. They'll talk to people. We don't want Richard Lewis at events. We don't want Richard Lewis writing this story. Will you pull that copy? Will you do this? Will you do that? They will fucking fight you and fight you and fight you and fight you. And if you do not have the stomach for that, if you can't wake up every day and think, right, I've got 3,000 Twitter followers. He's got 300,000, but I'm gonna fucking not back down. I'm gonna butt head to head with him while I'm just getting wrecked in social media, because the truth will come out. I stand by my work. If you cannot handle the stress of that, people doxing you, trying to hack your emails, DDoSing you, threatening to kill you, threatening violence against you and your family, this will happen. If you write a meaningful piece of work, this will happen. If you can't tolerate that, you just get out. People will often ask, why are you like so aggressive and stuff on social media, and I'm trying to be better about it lately, but I was in a very combative mindset because I had to be. That's where I need to be to do the kind of work that I do, because people will come for me. People will say I'm a liar. People will try and take away everything I have. They want to take your job. They want to take all the food out of your fucking cupboards, the light bulbs out of the fucking ceiling, the roof from over your head. When people try and take away your job, when you're doing it right, and it's unconscionable. Okay? The only reason people should lose any form of work is incompetence where it endangers others, or malevolence. That's it. And unfortunately, they'll come for you and they'll try and take everything you have. It's not cool. It's not glamorous. You're going to have to put up with that and just learn. Don't back down. A big thing people will talk about is objectivity. There's a few quotes. So let's start with Hunter S. Thompson again. I take a lot of my cues from him. He says, with the possible exception of things like box scores, race results, and stock market tabulations, there is no such thing as objective journalism. The phrase itself is a pompous contradiction in terms. And he also said, later. Objective journalism is one of the main reasons that American politics has been allowed to be so corrupt for so long. Now, what does he mean by that? Well, look, you come in to writing any piece, and you should attempt objectivity. You should never change facts to fit a narrative. You should try and come in with as open a mind as you can. But at the end of the day, you are only human. You are going to have biases. You are going to have preconceived notions, and these are going to inform your work. You may only look in a certain place to begin with based on something you believe. And if that's the case, you've got to declare that. You have got to understand that and be cognizant of it. I always try and do this in my copy. You know, for example, people have said you're biased against Riot. That isn't true. That isn't true. I look harder at them because they're an industry leader. I look harder at them because they are so influential, nobody looks at them. They are given a pass repeatedly by the journalists and the press in our space. That isn't bias. That is an understanding that they have, that someone's got to do that, and I'm going to have to be that person. So I write about them, or have written about them more in the past than any other developer probably, on that basis, that no one else is going to do it, so I will do it. Now, that doesn't make me biased. You will see plenty of positive stories I've written about Riot, things they've done correctly and things they've done bad. I don't go after them. I only write up what is wrong. However, here's what I will say. I try not to be, but I am absolutely... When I see evidence of someone taking someone's money, thievery, scamming people, yeah, of course I'm fucking biased. Of course I'm fucking biased. I loathe that. I despise that. I think when people exploit other human beings, it's fucking gross. And I'm biased about it, and I might write something up in a way more severe term than a balanced or objective report. I think I make it obvious. I think I declare my biases. I think it's very clear from the tone how I feel about something. I think being biased towards pieces of shit isn't that big a deal. But that said, I've gone to bat for other pieces of shit in the eyes of other people if I don't feel they're getting a fair trial, so to speak. I got a lot of criticism, for example, recently for saying, all of this YouTube stuff about getting rid of Keemstar was just embarrassing, and they recycled the same facts over and over again and took videos out of context to make him look worse than he is. The guy ain't perfect, right? But that trial by media, and it's not even trial by media, it's like trial by fan base, trial by popularity, that's fucking gross. And the facts should always speak for themselves. And people were distorting them, and people wanted them to be distorted and wanted to listen to those distorted facts because it confirmed the biases they already had. So, I'm a human. I'll make mistakes. I'll be biased, I'm sure, at certain points. And maybe other journalists can take me to task and provide some balance. I try and walk the line, understand that you're going to fail. Objective journalism is, I think, an unobtainable ideal. You should aspire for it. You might get close. You might get 99.99% of the way. But I don't believe anyone's process from point A to point B can be totally uninformed by their experiences, personality, and beliefs. I think that's ridiculous. And, Glenn Greenwald, again, kind of echoes these sentiments. He says, I personally think honestly disclosing rather than hiding one's subjective values makes for more honest and trustworthy journalism. But no journalism, from the most stylistically objective to the most brazenly opinionated, has any real value unless it is grounded in facts, evidence, and verifiable data. And that's absolutely true. And again, you can, I think while you can write biased pieces, they can be biased in tone, but as long as the facts are there, I don't mind that. I think be biased in tone, but if the facts enable you to do that, if the facts give you that leeway and that leverage, that's fine. Now, the other thing, how to fact check. Very important. Doesn't happen enough in the games press. People will tell you something, and I see a lot of junior journalists, especially in esports, someone tells them something, they go out and they go, an anonymous source said this. And we asked the other party for comment, and they declined to comment at this time, or they denied it. I don't think there's a great value in that. I think what you're doing there is you're effectively regurgitating gossip. I think you are basically, it's tattletelling. It's not journalism, right? Like the first statement, the first fact that you hear, the first account of something that you hear, you got to take it, you gotta look at it, and then you got to think, who can I ask next? Who else is likely to know? Refer back to your sources. If you don't have sources, try and find one. Contact people. Say, look, you don't know me. Get yourself a proper email, one that looks legit. Don't get yourself something that's going to get caught up in a spam filter, or looks like if I open it, it's going to be from a Nigerian prince. And say, look, you don't know me, but I'm writing a piece about this, and I'm hoping I can talk to you. I have some questions. Could you spare some time? Reach out to people. Keep going and going and going and going. And resist the urge to publish that one account. You're going to get clicks. Yeah, your editor's going to love you probably. Yeah, brilliant. But that isn't the work. The work is what comes after that. You've got the start. That's step one. Go out there and substantiate it. And always do it. And that's how you do it. Learn process. How do I find where a business is registered in this country? Look it up. Google it. It's doable. If you're not capable of that, find somebody who is. Go to a fucking library. Talk to a fucking lecturer. Email a company that operates in that space. Just find out how you need to dig. And there's so many ways. It's not just Google. Google might be a great tool. It is. Okay, no doubt about it. But if you're doing all your research through Google, again, you're not a journalist. You gotta be able to know where to look and educate yourself on how things work. If you write about this industry, look, understand the differences between what a business is. Does this business have to be registered? Was it registered? If it was registered, where would that document be? What are the state laws about that? What are the country's laws about that? Read, educate yourself, learn to dig. And look, tell your editor. Tell them, I'm onto something big here. I need the time to verify this. Any editor that pushes you to publish ahead of an investigative piece being ready, fuck them. Piece of shit. Get it right. Do it properly. Get the work. And to be honest, if you ever hit an impasse where you're like, I've gone as far as I have with this, reach out to a journalist that might even be better than you, that can maybe take it the rest of the way. Give it to your editor and say, please, what can you do with this? Publish it in its incomplete form and say, this is as far as we got. This is what we found. We don't, it doesn't need a fucking firm end. It doesn't have to end with a guy in handcuffs every time, right? Just do the work, dig, back it up, present the facts, and leave it there. Now, just the final... opinion pieces I should talk about as well. I see a lot of journalists, young journalists, wanting to write opinion pieces these days, and it's great. We need more opinion pieces. I agree. A lot of people in the esports space don't understand that an opinion piece is a valid form of journalism. They're not very smart. They're not very savvy about journalism. Everyone on Reddit thinks they're an expert on journalism. They're not. And these biased opinion pieces are a disgrace. It's a fucking opinion piece. It's meant to be that way. It's an editorial. It's an op-ed. Whatever the fuck it is, it's my opinion. So yes, it's biased towards my opinion. That's the point. Now, the problem we get with that, what dilutes opinion pieces and what upsets people is if they look at somebody and they're like, you don't have the right to an opinion on this particular topic. So, for example, I believe wholeheartedly, and you can say this is arrogant, I've earned my right to an opinion on esports. I've worked in this space for over a decade. I've done multiple jobs. I've written about it endlessly. I think I get an opinion. I am entitled to an opinion. I think my opinion is worth hearing on this topic. A space my opinion isn't worth hearing on is, I don't know, let's say astrophysics. I don't know any fucking thing about it. I certainly wouldn't try and dabble in it. But if for any reason I ever did try and express an opinion about it, I'd expect it to be the opinion of a layman and nothing more. I certainly wouldn't expect a publication to go, hey, Richard, you want to write an article on astrophysics and publish it? I'd be aghast. I mean, like if any publication did that, it would be horrifying. And that's the key difference. Your personal opinions that you may have privately or publicly, but your personal opinions, that's fine. But when you're going in print and you're acting like you're an authority on something, that's bad. And that's the difference. You know, people say, oh, but if you tweet something, no, tweet whatever you want. Twitter's bollocks, mate. Right? The point is, if a credible publication on astrophysics was to publish an article by me on astrophysics, their credibility should be absolutely in the fucking toilet because they don't know anything about astrophysics. So you have to earn your right to an opinion. But when you do, express it. Express it all the time. You know, if you've been working as an analyst in League of Legends, instead of being one of those sad, pathetic creatures that is a Twitter analyst and going, oh, look, well, they messed up the pick and ban phase. Right, actually do something important. Sit down, watch a game, put an opinion piece out, why they lost this game based on me, and explain your experience in your byline and go into it, and then let people absorb, disagree, whatever, and walk the fuck away. That's it. You earn the right to that opinion if you can prove that you've earned the right to that opinion. And always express opinions. Never be afraid to. Get it out there. If you've earned the right, fucking use that right. So, the final stuff. And Hunter S. Thompson said, I don't think that my kind of... think about how amazing Hunter S. Thompson is. I don't think that my kind of journalism has ever been universally popular. It's lonely out here. And, you know, you shouldn't expect rewards. You shouldn't. I'll tell you, there's no money in this. You'll never be as popular as a player, a manager, a coach, you know, whatever else it is. You just simply won't ever be a popular figure. You know, very few journalists ever rise to that. You know, kind of that status, and understand that going in. If that's your motivation for doing it, if you're one of these failed players who tried to do some other things and just wants to work in esports, I'm not so keen on you, right? You're not, you know, you should have a fire in the belly to do this kind of work, and if you don't, then whatever. So yeah, don't expect rewards, because there aren't any. No one's ever going to sing your name. You're a fucking journalist. Best journalists, I think, generally kind of, they have a byline, people respect it, people know it's legit, but that's about it. You know, when you stray into the realm of being in the headlines, you know, like what happened with me with the load of shit and all that, you know, that can actually detract from your work. So, but the best kind of journalists are the people that do the work, let the work, you know, kind of speak for itself, and aren't looking for rewards or TV time or spotlight or anything else. You know, it's just, look, this is the fucking work. It's great. It's righteous. There it is. And you know, I went for years before I saw a decent paycheck. I went for years before I kind of had any authoritative, an authoritative voice, before people would say, that is a Richard Lewis article that has some weight to it. It took me a long, long time. And that's the only reward that you can ever hope to achieve out of this. And you know what? That reward is fucking amazing. If it matters to you, it's amazing. Now, wrap this video up. There's 1.5 words, which are the most important words you will ever learn as a journalist. And you should wake up every day and you should say these words. You should say it every time you sit at your PC, every time you're challenged, every time there's pushback, every time someone comes after you, every time an editor tells you they don't want to publish. 1.5 words. Fuck them. Fuck them. That's it. Be bullish in your determination to get good work out there. Do whatever it takes. But fuck them. And fuck them good. And if people want to get in your way, you got to fucking push through. You got to tear that shit down. This isn't a job for the faint of heart. This isn't a job for people that get disheartened very easily. This isn't fun a lot of the time. You know, it's about pride. It's about pride and integrity, and if you care about your work, if you are prideful of your work, if you respect the people that the work is for, and you respect the craft, and you tie all of that together, anyone that tries to tear that down is an enemy. They're an enemy of truth. They're an enemy of good work. They're an enemy of the industry. However you've got to frame it. But just remember, it's going to be tough. You're going to have fights. People are going to try and hurt you, hurt your feelings, hurt your job, hurt your reputation. Fuck them. Just keep going. Never fucking stop. Because at the end of the day, if what you're doing is true, if what you're doing is beneficial to the greater good, to the vast amount of people, that's all that matters. That will always stand the test of time. That will always be the bottom line. That will always be the way the story plays out. It won't be the bitches that try to put knives in your back. It won't be the people that called you a liar when you weren't. It won't be the people that tried to fucking take your job away. They will crumble over time. Anyone that is afraid of the truth has an inherent love of dishonesty. And it's your job to go out there and shine a light on it. So go forth, do good work. If anything in this video has put you off, good. I've saved you a lot of time. If this still sounds like the fucking job you want to do, you might just be the thing that esports and gaming is looking for. I'll see you next time.